Sun-Hee Kim stood alone in the large room. 17 alien leaders stared at her. She was the only human at the Galactic Council's first meeting. She was not there because she was special. She was there because of a mistake. The aliens were much taller than her. Some had many arms. Others had skin that changed colors. A few looked like they were made of light. They wore fancy robes and armor that showed they came from old and advanced worlds. Sun-Hee wore her normal work suit. It had a coffee stain on the sleeve from bumping into someone at the space station coffee shop. "This is Earth's chosen one?" asked Talon, the leader from the Orion Empire. His loud voice filled the room as all 4 of his eyes looked down at her. A small woman with no special powers. Sun-Hee tried to speak calmly. "Hello, I'm Sun-Hee Kim. I work in the Earth office for alien contact. There's been a mix-up in who was supposed to come." "A mix-up?" Talon cut her off, his mouth parts clicking as he laughed. "The humans sent the wrong person. They are even more backward than we thought." Everyone in the Grand Hall laughed. Even the oldest council members, who rarely showed feelings, had small smiles. "I can explain," Sun-Hee said, her face getting hot. "The team was supposed to send Ambassador Do-yoon, but there was a computer error and they still use computers that make mistakes," a see-through alien said loudly to another. More laughter filled the room. Talon raised his arms for quiet. "The tests start tomorrow. All species must show they deserve to join our council. The humans." He looked at Sun-Hee with all his eyes. "Well, we'll see if they even make it through the first test." As the aliens left, Sun-Hee couldn't move. Back on Earth, they had planned for this meeting for many years. They had built new machines and trained their smartest people. But instead of the brilliant scientist and speaker Do-yoon Park, Earth was now represented by Sun-Hee, an office worker who was accidentally put on the list when Do-yoon got sick for one day. Her phone beeped. It was her boss, Director Min-ho. "Sun-Hee, what's going on up there? Where is Do-yoon?" She took a deep breath. "Sir, we have a problem. The council thinks I'm Earth's official person. You? But that's... I know. It's a mistake. But they've already started the official process, and by their rules, Earth can't change representatives now." There was a long silence. "Sir, what should I do?" Director Min-ho finally spoke, sounding worried. "Just try not to make things worse. We'll try to fix this through talks." But Sun-Hee knew from how the aliens had looked at her, with laughs and pity, that Earth's good name was already hurt. How could humans show they deserved to join the advanced aliens of the galaxy when they couldn't even send the right person? As she walked to her room on the huge space station, Sun-Hee saw the aliens giving her strange looks. Some whispered as she walked by. Others made hand signs she didn't understand but knew weren't nice. In her room, she sat on her bed and looked at the stars. Earth was just a small blue dot from here, a whole planet of people counting on her not to ruin what might be humanity's only chance to join the space community. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the tiny dot that was home. Her phone beeped again with a message from Earth. It had details about tomorrow's first test. As she read, her hands shook. The first test would check each species' knowledge of how stars work, especially how to stop stars from dying. It was a real test, to be done on an actual dying star. Sun-Hee had studied office work and talking to people. The closest she'd come to star science was one basic class in her first year of school. "This is impossible," she said quietly. But as she kept reading, something caught her eye. A note about her grandmother's research from 30 years ago. Work on how to keep stars stable that other scientists had called too unreal. Sun-Hee had grown up hearing these ideas. Her grandmother, sad that other scientists didn't believe her, had explained her ideas to young Sun-Hee using simple games and stories. Sun-Hee never knew those bedtime stories might actually be real science. She took out her tablet and started writing down everything she could remember from her grandmother's stories. It wasn't much, but it was all Earth had now. Through her window, faraway stars sparkled. One of them would be her test tomorrow. And somehow, using only half-remembered bedtime stories and her office skills, she would have to show humanity's worth to a group of advanced aliens who already saw her as a joke. The test room was a big deck with a clear ceiling showing the stars. 17 workstations stood in a half circle, one for each alien race. Sunhee walked slowly to her station. The other aliens were already working, their hands or tentacles moving quickly over strange controls. "Human," a voice said. She turned to see an alien with skin like shiny copper. "I am Hyosang from the Lyran worlds. You look not ready." "That's putting it nicely," Sunhee said. Hyosang moved his head to one side. "You probably won't win. Your people are too new to space." Before she could answer, the old council leader's voice filled the room. "Everyone, your first test starts now. Each of you has a dying star. You must show your knowledge by keeping your star stable for 100 turns." A 3D image appeared above Sunhee's control panel. It showed a small red star with huge fire bursts coming from its surface. "Each test is made to match your people's level of science," the leader said. "You have one time period to get ready. Start." The other aliens began working right away, using their control panels with great skill. Sunhee stared at her display, feeling scared. She touched the panel carefully. It lit up with numbers and data moving too fast for her to understand. Her heart beat fast. Earth's future depended on her solving a problem she had no training for. Sunhee closed her eyes and tried to remember her grandmother's stories. "Stars are like people," her grandmother had told her. "They have hearts that beat with rhythms. When they get old, these rhythms become uneven." Opening her eyes, Sunhee looked at the data in a new way. She didn't see math problems, but patterns, like music beats. The star bursts weren't random. They followed a pattern. She began to tap commands into the panel based on patterns that felt right to her. She thought about her grandmother's hands, how they moved when showing what she called the star dance. "You're doing it wrong," said Talon, who came over to watch her work. "Your simple methods are funny to watch." Sunhee ignored him and focused on the star's pulse patterns. It reminded her of a song she almost knew. When the prep time ended, the leader said, "Your stars are now live. We will measure your work as it happens." On Sunhee's screen, the red star began to burst with huge flames. Warning lights flashed across her panel. The other aliens worked calmly, but Sunhee felt very nervous. She remembered more of grandmother's words. "When a star loses its rhythm, sometimes you must first match its wild beat before you can help it calm down." Instead of trying to stop the bursts, Sunhee made her program match them, to dance with the star instead of trying to force it to be quiet. People gasped as her screen showed the star getting even more active. "The human is failing badly," someone said. But then something strange happened. As Sunhee's program matched the star's wild rhythm, the bursts began to work together. The star wasn't calmer, but its energy now flowed in a controlled way. "That's not possible," Talon said, all four of his eyes wide open. Hyosang moved closer to watch. "What method are you using?" Sunhee couldn't explain the science, but she understood the pattern. "It's like calming an upset child," she said. "First, you join their energy, then slowly guide them to where they need to be." Hour by hour, she guided the star's energy into more stable patterns. By the end, her star wasn't still like the others. It still flared and pulsed, but it did so in a way that wouldn't let it blow up. The leader came to her station and studied her display. "Not normal," they said, "but it works for this test. The human passes." Whispers spread through the room. Talon looked shocked. Hyosang seemed curious. Sunhee breathed out slowly, hardly believing what happened. She had passed the first test, not with science knowledge, but by seeing patterns, by remembering her grandmother's bedtime stories. As she left, Hyosang walked beside her. "Your way was different," he said. "I didn't have many options," Sunhee replied. "I'm not a scientist." "Maybe that's why you won. You saw what we missed." He paused. "The next test will be harder." What is it? Talking to a kind of being that no one understands. Even the oldest council members have failed this before. Sunny felt a small hope grow. Communication was something she actually knew about. Maybe she wouldn't be a complete failure after all. The second test took place in a big room with walls that changed from solid to see-through. In the middle stood 17 crystal shades, each giving off a soft light. Everyone, the old council leader said, in front of you are the luminary, beings made of pure light and thought. They have been alive since before many of your stars formed, yet no one has truly talked with them. Sunny looked at the crystal in front of her. Unlike the others that glowed steadily, hers flickered on and off. Your test is to make real contact with your luminary within 3 time periods. How well you talk to them will decide if you pass. As the leader stepped back, the other aliens went to their crystals with tools and machines. Some began saying math patterns, others showed light displays. Sunhee stood with empty hands. She had no special tools, no science method to use. All she had was herself. The crystal's light pulsed, as if waiting. Hello, she said, feeling a bit silly. I'm Sunhee Kim, from Earth. The crystal's glow dimmed for a moment, then got brighter. I don't have any fancy equipment, she went on. I'm not even supposed to be here. The light flickered, and Sunhee felt like it was listening. From the side, she saw Talon at a nearby station, looking down at her simple approach. He was showing complex math patterns to his crystal, which stayed dark. Sunhee turned back to her crystal. This reminds me of something from Earth. We have little bugs called fireflies that talk through light patterns. The crystal's glow got a bit stronger. They flashed to find each other in the dark. Each one has its own beat. She smiled at the memory. When I was little, I used to try to talk to them with a flashlight. The crystal pulsed once, twice, then 3 times quickly. Sunhee blinked in surprise. Was it answering? She tapped the edge of the crystal 1, 2, 3 times. The light inside swirled, and then repeated the pattern, adding a 4th pulse. Her heart beating fast, Sunhee tapped 4 times. The crystal answered with 5 pulses. It's a pattern, she whispered. You're trying to talk through patterns. For the next few hours, Sunhee and the crystal created a more and more complex language of taps, pauses, and rhythms. It reminded her of learning piano as a child, finding the spaces between notes as important as the notes themselves. By the 2nd time period, she had made basic contact. The luminary, she learned, saw reality as patterns of energy flow. They didn't think in words or even ideas as humans understood them, but in rhythms and harmonies. Talon came over, his mouth parts clicking with anger. What method are you using? I'm just talking to it, Sunhee said, not taking her eyes off the crystal. Not possible. The luminary don't answer to words. They don't answer to words, she corrected him. But they do answer to patterns and feeling. She showed him by tapping a complex pattern, to which the crystal answered with an even more complex pattern of light. See, it's like a conversation, just not with words. Talon watched, his 4 eyes narrowing. The council won't accept such simple methods. But as the 3rd time period came to an end, the leader moved through the room, checking each alien's progress. Many had made basic contact signals with their luminary, but few had gone beyond that. When the leader reached Sunny, they watched in silence as she and the crystal exchanged fast patterns of taps and light pulses. Tell me what you have learned, the leader finally said. The luminary feel time differently than we do, Sunhee said, still keeping her rhythm with the crystal. Each pulse is not just talking but a shared moment of being. They don't trade information. They share experiences. The leader's old face showed no feeling, but Sunhee thought she saw a hint of surprise. Show me. Sunhee turned back to the crystal and tapped a new pattern, one she had been working on during the last time period. It was complex, with different strengths and lengths. The crystal's light changed to colors never seen before in the room, making patterns that seemed to reach beyond the crystal itself. For a short moment, Everyone in the room felt a sense of huge awareness, of being in many places at once. Then it faded, and the crystal returned to its gentle glow. "What did you ask it?" the leader asked. "I didn't ask anything, son," he said. "I shared with it what it feels like to be human, to be small in a big universe but connected to everything through wonder." The leader was quiet for a long time. In thousands of years, no one has reached this level of sharing with the luminary. They turned to speak to everyone. The human passes the second test. As the representatives filed out, Hyoseng approached Sunhee again. "You have surprised them twice now." "I surprised myself," she admitted. "The council is reconsidering their assessment of humans," he said. "But Talon and others are disturbed by your methods. They do not trust what they cannot quantify." "What's the next challenge?" she asked. "Navigation through the void, the space between dimensions. It is said to break the minds of the unprepared." Sunhee felt a chill run through her. She had succeeded twice through intuition and communication skills. But the void, that sounded far beyond her capabilities. Back in her quarters, a message waited from Director Minot. "The world is watching, Sunhee. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." She looked out at the stars, wondering which ones might die without proper care, which ones might have luminary living within them, and which ones bordered the mysterious void she would soon have to navigate. Despite her success, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was still, in many ways, a joke to the council, a primitive human stumbling through tests by luck rather than skill. But maybe, just maybe, that perspective was becoming their weakness, not hers. The third test was in a part of the space station Sunhee hadn't seen before. The room was smaller than the other test rooms, with 17 pod-like machines in a circle. "Everyone," the leader said, "the void is the space between realities. Those who can move through it can find hidden paths in the universe." The pods opened with a hissing sound. "You will enter a controlled void space. Your mind will separate from your body. You must find your way back to your body within one time period. Those who fail will have their minds break apart." Sunhee felt her mouth go dry. The other aliens began getting ready with special poses or by eating strange things. Some put devices on their heads or limbs. "What do humans use for void travel?" Hyoseng asked, seeing her empty hands. "Nothing," she admitted. "We don't even know the void exists in our science." His copper skin moved with worry. "Then how will you?" "Everyone, enter your pods," the leader cut in. As Sunhee climbed into her pod, Talon called from across the room. "Maybe the human will get lucky again." The pod closed around her. For a moment, there was only darkness. Then a cool liquid began filling the space. Sunhee panicked until she found she could breathe in it. The liquid felt heavy in her lungs, but not bad. "The test begins now," the leader's voice came, muffled through the liquid. A tiny point of light appeared before Sunhee's eyes, growing quickly until it filled her whole view. Then, suddenly, she was nowhere and everywhere. Her body was gone. Her thoughts floated free in an endless space that wasn't dark or light, wasn't hot or cold. It just was. Or wasn't. She couldn't tell. Far away, though distance meant nothing here, she saw the other aliens. Some moved with purpose, following paths only they could see. Others seemed to be building mental structures around themselves, creating order in the chaos. Sunhee had no method, no plan. She was drifting in infinity. Fear rose in her, but without a body, it had nowhere to go. It just grew until it filled her whole mind. "I can't do this," she thought. "I don't know how." As her fear reached its peak, something strange happened. A memory came, not her own, but her grandmother's voice. "When you're lost, Sunhee, don't look for the way out. Feel the way home." It had been her grandmother's advice when Sunhee got lost in a store as a child. But here, in the void, it meant something new. Sunhee stopped trying to see a path and instead focused on feeling. Not with a body she didn't have, but with who she really was. What made her Sunhee Kim? What connected her to herself? Memories began to flow. Her childhood home with its squeaky third step, the smell of her mother's cooking, the sound of her father's laugh. The day she finished school, the day she failed her driving test, the day she got her job at the Earth's space office. Each memory was like a thread, and together they made a pattern that was only hers. In the non-space of the void, that pattern began to glow. It wasn't a path exactly, but a tone, a beat that matched the special arrangement of atoms that made up her real body. She followed this tone, this feeling of sunhiness, letting it pull her through the formless void. As she moved, she became aware of other patterns, the special marks of the other aliens. Some were fighting, their patterns coming apart at the edges. Others moved surely, their cores bright and focused. Nearby, she recognized Talon's pattern, complex and stiff, built like a math proof. But it was failing, parts of it breaking away into the void. Without thinking, Sunny reached out, not with hands, but with will, and held the breaking edges of his pattern. Talon's mind pulled back in surprise, then steadied. Sunny continued, following her own tone. But now she noticed something else. Threads of connection linking all the patterns and reaching beyond them to countless others. The whole universe was a web of ties, of patterns changing patterns. And suddenly, she understood. The void wasn't emptiness. It was the layer under reality where everything connected. Following these connections, Sunny moved more surely now. She found her way back to the exact spot in the pattern that matched her physical body. She opened her eyes. The pod was draining, the liquid going away. She gasped as air filled her lungs again. The pod opened, and she stumbled out, legs weak and shaking. Only 5 other representatives had emerged so far. Hyoseng was one of them. He nodded to her with newfound respect. Minutes passed, and more pods opened. Talon emerged, looking shaken. His 4 eyes found Sunny, and he approached. "You assisted me in the void," he said, his voice lacking its usual condescension. "You were struggling," she replied simply. "Why would you help a competitor?" Sunny considered the question. "Because in the void, I saw that we're all connected. Competition seems beside the point." The elder approached before Talon could respond. 12 representatives have returned successfully. 5 remain lost. Sunny looked at the unopened pods with concern. "Can't you help them?" The terms of the challenge were clear, the elder stated. Those who cannot find their way back must face the consequences. "But I saw the connections in the void," Sunny protested. "We could guide them back using those pathways." The elder regarded her with ancient eyes. "You believe you could do this?" I think so. With help." The elder considered for a moment, then nodded. "You may attempt this, but be warned. If you return to the void, you risk being lost yourself." Sunny looked at the remaining pods, thinking of the consciousnesses adrift within the void. "I'll take that risk." She climbed back into her pod, and the process began again. This time, when she entered the void, she did so with purpose. She sought out the lost patterns, 5 representatives whose essences were dispersing, losing coherence. One by one, she gathered them, reinforcing their patterns with her own resonance, guiding them back to their physical anchors. It was exhausting, like trying to hold smoke together with her thoughts, but gradually, she succeeded. When she returned to her body the second time, all 17 pods were open. The 5 rescued representatives looked disoriented but whole. The elder stood before the assembled group. In the history of this challenge, no representative has ever returned to the void to rescue others. They turned to Sunny. The human not only passes but has demonstrated a quality we did not anticipate. "What quality is that?" asked one of the representatives Sunny had rescued. "Interconnectedness," the elder replied. "The understanding that advancement without compassion is hollow progress." As they left the chamber, Talon fell into step beside her. "Your methods are unorthodox, human. You can call me Sunny." "Sunny," he said, the name awkward on his alien tongue. "You have earned some measure of respect." But the final challenge will test even the eldest among us. What is it? The dying stars, he replied gravely. Not simulations this time, but actual stellar bodies on the brink of collapse. The fate of entire systems hangs in the balance. Sunhee felt a weight settle in her chest. Playing with simulations was one thing, but real stars, real worlds potentially facing destruction. Do not look so concerned, Talon said, misreading her expression. Your species will not be expected to succeed, merely to observe and learn. But as Sunhee returned to her quarters, she knew that observation would not be enough. Earth needed a full seat at the Galactic Council, not just a place in the audience. Her communicator beeped with another message from Director Minho. The world is watching, Sunhee, and hoping. Whatever happens next, you've already made history. She looked out at the stars and wondered which ones she would soon be trying to save. The days between tests were filled with meetings and sharing of cultures. Sunhee found herself suddenly liked by some aliens who had ignored her before. Your way of handling the void was eye-opening, said an alien from a gas planet, their see-through body showing swirls of color. I just did what felt right, Sunhee said, still not used to the attention. Not everyone was happy. A group led by the oldest council alien seemed worried by her success. They gathered in corners during meetings, talking quietly and looking at her. Hyo-sing found her during a gathering. You've caused quite a stir, Sunhee Kim. I didn't mean to. What you meant doesn't matter. What happened does. His copper skin caught the light as he pointed toward the unhappy group. They fear what they don't understand, and you are very hard to understand. Why? I'm just a human. Exactly. By their measures, you should have failed every test. Your people are young, your tools simple, yet you've passed where others, thousands of years more advanced, have not. Is that bad? It challenges how they see progress. They believe moving forward comes through tools and stored knowledge, not whatever it is you're doing. Sunhee frowned. I'm not doing anything special. I'm just solving problems differently. That's what scares them, Hyo-sing said. The idea that their way might not be the only way, or even the best way. Before she could answer, a voice sounded through the room. All aliens were called to an emergency council meeting. The big council room was a large round theater with the council leaders seated on a raised stage. The 17 aliens took their places in the curved rows in front of them. We have bad news, the head leader began right away. The Vega star system is having unusual star problems. Many stars are showing signs they might soon blow up. Pictures appeared above the center of the room, showing a group of stars with several red flashing points. This is not natural, the leader went on. The pattern suggests someone is causing this. Whispers spread through the room. Who would damage a whole star system? Someone asked. The Vega system has valuable materials, answered another. If it were destroyed, the areas around it would be open for taking. Accusations began flying as aliens pointed at old enemies and suspicious neighbors. Sunhee stayed quiet, studying the picture. There was something familiar about the pattern of the star problems, something with rhythm. She stood up. May I look at the data more closely? All eyes turned to her. After a moment, the leader nodded, and the picture got bigger to show detailed readings. Sunhee walked to the center of the room, turning slowly as she looked at the pattern from all angles. This isn't sabotage, she said finally. It's communication. Explain, demanded the leader. The stars aren't failing randomly. They're pulsing in a sequence, like the luminary. She pointed to specific spots in the pattern. See, it repeats with changes, just like in the crystal test. Talon stepped forward. If you're right, what message would be worth risking star collapse to send? A warning? Maybe, Sunhee suggested. Or a call for help. The room fell silent as everyone thought about what this meant. The final test, the leader announced after a long moment, will now address a real crisis. You must travel to the Vega system and try to stabilize the affected stars. If these pulses are indeed a form of communication, you must figure out what they say. The aliens were dismissed to prepare for immediate departure. As Sunny headed to her room, Talon stopped her. "If you're wrong about this, billions will die," he said bluntly. "I know. And if you're right, what then?" Sunny paused. "Then we need to answer." In her room, she packed quickly. Her phone beeped with a message from Earth. It was not Director Minho this time, but a direct message from the Global Security Council. "Sun-Hee Kim, you are now officially appointed as Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. Your previous status has been fixed. You speak with the full authority of Earth." She stared at the message, feeling mixed emotions. The mistake that had made her a joke at first contact had now become her official job. Earth had decided to stand by their accidental ambassador. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. It was Hyosung. "We depart in 1 hour," he said. "I've come to offer my assistance." "Why would you help me?" His copper skin shifted thoughtfully. "Because in the void, you showed something my people have long suspected. That connection matters more than competition. If humanity joins the Council with that perspective intact, perhaps the balance of power might shift toward cooperation. And if I fail, then at least you fail trying to save lives rather than simply to advance your species' standing." They boarded the Council vessel together, joining the other representatives for the journey to the Vega system. The ship moved through space in ways Earth's scientists had only theorized about, bending reality around itself to cover vast distances in hours rather than years. Sun-Hee spent the journey studying everything she could about the Vega system and reviewing her grandmother's theories on stellar communications. Her grandmother had proposed that stars could be influenced through harmonics, specific frequencies that resonated with their internal structures. "It's like singing to a wine glass until it shatters," she had explained to young Sunny, "except we want to sing to the stars to keep them from shattering." The Vega system came into view, a brilliant cluster of stars surrounded by inhabited planets and stations, many of which were now being evacuated. "Representatives, prepare for arrival," announced the ship's commander. "Stabilization equipment has been prepared according to each species' technological specifications." Sun-Hee looked at her assigned equipment, a standard Council interface similar to what she had used in the first challenge. It seemed woefully inadequate for the task ahead. As the ship entered the system, the true scale of the crisis became apparent. 7 stars were pulsing erratically, their surfaces boiling with massive flares and ejections. Surrounding them, planetary atmospheres were already being stripped away by the increased radiation. "Beginning stabilization efforts," the commander ordered. Each representative was assigned to a different star, with Council technicians supporting their efforts. Sun-Hee found herself facing a mid-sized yellow star similar to Earth's sun, but in the late stages of its life cycle. As she began working with the interface, trying to establish the pattern she had seen in the hologram, alarms blared throughout the ship. "New development." The commander's voice came urgently. 3 additional stars have begun destabilizing. The pattern is expanding. Sun-Hee looked up at the view screen showing the entire system. Now she could see it clearly. The stars were pulsing in a complex but recognizable pattern, like ripples expanding across a pond. And at the center of those ripples was something the sensors hadn't detected before, a dense cluster of crystalline structures floating in the space between the stars. "Luminary," she whispered. She turned to the commander. "There are luminary at the center of this system. They're the ones communicating through the stars." "That's impossible," one of the Council scientists objected. "Luminary cannot survive in open space." "Look at your own readings," Sun-Hee insisted, pointing to the anomalous energy signatures. "That's exactly what they are." As the debate raged, Sun-Hee made a decision. She abandoned her assigned star and redirected her interface to focus on the crystalline cluster at the system's center. "What are you doing?" demanded Talon from his station. "Return to your assignment." But Sun-Hee ignored him, concentrating instead on establishing the same rhythm of communication she had developed with the luminary during the second challenge. She tapped patterns into her console, matching the pulses coming from the crystal cluster. At first, there was no response. Then, slowly, the erratic pulses from the central cluster began to align with her input. A message formed in her mind, not words, but impressions. Danger. Approaching. Need help. They're afraid, Sunhee announced to the stunned command deck. Something is coming, something that threatens them. They're destabilizing the stars as a defense mechanism. Defense against what? The commander demanded. Before Sunhee could answer, new alarms sounded. At the edge of the system, space itself seemed to fold inward, creating a massive distortion. Void breach, someone shouted. Something's coming through. On the view screen, an enormous shape emerged from the distortion, a vessel or perhaps a being. It was difficult to tell. It was dark and angular, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. "It's a void entity," gasped one of the elders who had accompanied the mission. They were thought